everybody. This is William del Pilar, and welcome to the Fired Up California podcast, where I bring you the politically incorrect truth on the Golden State's hottest issues from a center-right perspective. Today, we dive into Gavin Newsom's rocky road to a potential 2028 presidential bid, unpacking his progressive record that's driving deficits, exodus, and scandals while insulating him in a deep blue state called California. We'll also expose the judicial overreach in a SoCal sanctuary showdown where a Biden appointed judge is handcuffing ICE raids amid Trump's deportation push. And don't miss our breakdown of Newsom's donor disaster, the shocking raid on a cannabis farm tied to his contributor, uncovering child exploitation, traffickers, and Democrat hypocrisy. It's another scorching episode, my friends, with facts that will fire you up. But before we get into it, don't forget to bookmark grumblingsmedia.com and follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify under the handle Grumblings Media. So with that, let us get on to our show. As the 2028 presidential election draws nearer, California Governor Gavin Newsom has taken notable steps to elevate his profile on the national stage. We've seen it. He's become Mr. Podcast. He's starting to travel the country. And actually, just last week, he embarked on a 2-day tour of rural South Carolina, an early primary state where he engaged voters. He went to churches, coffee shops, and community events. And obviously, he criticized President Trump and promoted deeply failed Democrat priorities. That came out wrong. He promoted Democrat policies that have deeply failed. Now, this follows his increased visibility as a surrogate for the Democrat Party, and that goes back to Joe Biden when he went and he thought he was going to have a chance. He really thought in 2024, after Biden says, "I'm stepping down," that he would have a shot at the convention. Now, a couple of points here. One, he couldn't read the room. The white male was done at that point. Two, the VP had first crack by default as VP. That's how it traditionally works. And three, she was a woman and a woman of color. And if the party had gone to a white man, that would have ripped the party up even more. So obviously he couldn't read the room, but he has not given up. We all knew what Kamala was, a weak candidate, a bigoted candidate. I don't want to say racist candidate because she serves a white man, the white Democrat white man, but just a flawed candidate. So he's looking at 2028. So, and you know, in his mind, he's going strong right now. Polling for June 2025 showed growing support among potential Democrat primary voters. His favorability numbers started to rise amid California's failed progressive policies. But when they were called out for what they are, failed progressive policies by Trump, his numbers went up. We live in such a tribalistic world because of Democrats, because of tribalism, because of Black of America, because of Latino America, not the constituents, but the Democrat leaders who are creating this tribalism to keep us at one another. How do I know this? I'm a Latino who has every color within the family, and I see it. And that's why I'm here to talk about it. Because until we come together as Americans, it's going to get worse. And until Latinos and Blacks and Asians look in the mirror at our own issues, at our, well, not really Asians, but Latinos and Blacks, at our own victimization created by Democrat policies and telling us it's okay, until we look in the mirror, it's going to get worse. And I don't say that in a negative way. I'm saying that if you want to improve as a human being, as an American, to do better for yourself, you've got to look at the mirror and go, these are my faults and my failings, and I need to work on them, not only to become a better person for society, but to become a successful American financially and spiritually. Now, what Newsom has done the last couple of weeks is he has signaled an openness to a presidential run. And that's a shift from earlier denials. No, 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 I'm not going to run. I'm just out there having a good time. Lying sack. He's trying to paint himself as a forward-thinking leader on issues like climate and healthcare, two issues that have failed miserably in California and caused the fourth largest economy in the world to be a debt-ridden economy that has seen businesses and constituents flee the state. So while speculation builds, again, his record as governor will face intense scrutiny. Well, not again, but rather his record as governor will face intense scrutiny, particularly in swing states where voters prioritize economic stability and practical governance over ideological stances. Look, James Carville, who used to be brilliant, is now nothing but a dumbass moron. Everything he's predicted the last 4 or 5 years has been exponentially wrong, and yet they still give him the mic because of his past success with Reagan. And then he had a great run for a prime minister. Maybe it was Ibruk, whatever the guy who's visited Epstein. I can't remember, but one of those guys. But the point is at the end of the day, when Carville said it's economy stupid, it's true. Even when Trump ran, immigration was the number one issue, but the economy was right below it, and immigration is tied to the economy. So it's always the economy. So a quick overview of Gavin Newsom. We just see the governor, we see his future, but he was born in 1967, San Francisco, well-connected family. He tried a couple weeks ago, my sister in the hallway running up because we only have one bed to sleep in. His father was an appellate court judge. Newsom graduated from Santa Clara University and a degree in political science. No business acumen. That's why he doesn't talk about his business acumen. But on paper, he had a successful hospitality career. But it really wasn't. It's because it was the Getty family, the oil family, all those rich white bread, silver spoon brats using all the money from the Getty fortune of oil. Gordon Getty provided him with all his seed funding, primary investments, controlling stakes, up to 96% with some of the early ventures. He effectively bankrolled Gavin Newsom's business career. I guess he had a company called Plump Jacks, and he really helped that grow. Now, Newsom, they said, contributed early ideas and plans. He did no such thing. He was just there on the side, along for the ride, the face and front. But it was the Getty family that was doing everything. And then around 2003, he kind of gave it up, gave it to his sister. I mean, he didn't give it, but put it in a trust, so his role became passive as he went full-time into politics. Blind trust is what it was. So he has no business acumen, no independent acumen. That's why he doesn't talk about it, because when you start to peel the layers off, you see who really ran that. But it's important for you to know that, that his benefactor is owed oil money. So in essence, what they did is they crafted a political resume. In the military, we call it ticket punching. It's kind of what they did with him. And again, this is why he doesn't tout his business skills publicly, because he has none. So then he became mayor of San Francisco in 2003 at age 36, youngest in over a century, and began the destruction of that city into what we see today. So, I mean, you can't necessarily put it on one mayor, but he got that ball rolling, baby. He issued marriage licenses to same-sex couples in 2004, despite the fact we voted to not legalize gay marriage. Let me make it a civil union. And then the courts overturned it. Did y'all know there is not one state in this union that has voted in gay marriage? Not one state. It's always been overturned by the courts and implemented that way. There's going to be a day of reckoning one day in all this. How? I don't know, but there will be. It may not be my lifetime, but there will be. Then he served as lieutenant governor from 2011 to 2019, then won the governorship in 2018. Reelected in 2022 with 59% of the vote. We are a deep blue state. We have a truly impotent California Republican Party. In fact, they are so impotent, they are more akin to ducks with a C. We had no spine. Now there's new leadership. I'm actually going to work to bring the state chair on board, maybe as early as next week if I'm lucky, for a podcast. But I'm working on that with some people that know her. I know of her. I've actually been in the same room with her, but I'm a little peon there when I went to these events. I had no desire to move up those ranks or to get involved. When I first got started in 2015, I did. But I remember when they told me, William, have you considered moving so we can sit there and groom you and set you up? I'm like, no, I'm not going to move. And then I speak my own mind. I speak my own voice. And that just doesn't, I don't play well with others, I guess. But I've seen her career climb up since 2015, 2016, right around there. And she's now elevated the chair. I don't know how far she's going to go with her career. I don't think Jessica Milan Patterson, the previous chair, is going to go far. Brulti's already in the background because these are losers. At the end of the day, they're losers. California is a losing deep blue state. They have exponentially lost. So hopefully Ms. Corin Rankin can turn that around. But regardless, getting back to Newsom, that's why I believe he won with 59% of the vote in 2022. So his tenure has been nothing but progressive reforms that have been nothing but disaster after disaster after disaster. We are broke. And a big chunk of it is because we've given more than literally any other state to illegal aliens, and it's literally bankrupting us. You toss in the homeless, and the bankruptcy still continues. You toss in the pension debt that they don't talk about and that isn't in the budget, anywhere from 300 billion to 1.9 trillion. California's a mess, and Newsom has had a big hand in that. So his national viability and polling insights, what does that bring to the table? Well, my research showed that while Newsom's built momentum through anti-Trump positioning, a lot of high-profile engagements, recent polls do show a mixed picture for 2028. So from June 2025, there was polling done by Emerson College, Morning Consult, and they show his support among Democrat voters is about 15 to 20%, and it's doubled since the LA wildfires. Think that it took a disaster for his numbers to come up. Why? Because Trump said, y'all didn't do anything that we talked about in my first term for you to improve your situation, and now you burnt LA to the ground. And now you want 40 billion to be just given to you? No, sir. And of course, all the leftist ducks with the C, rallied to him, and his support among Democrats doubled about 15 to 20%, placing him second behind figures like Kamala, believe that or not. And that uptick was done because, again, of clashes with Trump and his tour to South Carolina. He's playing to the crowds, to the camera. That's going to tick him up a little bit as well. However, his favorability remains polarized. Strong among progressives, but weak among independents. It's around 75% oppose him, and Republicans about 80% oppose him. I think about that, 75% of independents oppose him, and that's almost as much as the Republicans. So he has no appeal in battleground states. And the reason I'm talking about this is because he just came from, he's pretty much now acknowledging he's going to run for president. Going to South Carolina alone is your big red flag. Yeah, he's running. So that's why I'm talking about him here. But he has no potential. He's a walking dead man, politically speaking, and just doesn't want to see it or realize it. And it's not me wishing this. I'll explain why as we go along. But the polling itself right there shows it. And a lot can change. Let's not lie to anybody. A lot can and will change. So California has a deep blue political environment, Democratic supermajorities in the legislature since 2019 and off and on since 2009 since then. And that's allowed strategies like blaming federal policies, blaming local governments, or the minority opposition, i.e. the Republican Party. They're able to deflect blame. In this state, you can still sit there and say it's the Republican Party's fault, and they'll believe you. But he's got some serious issues that he would have to address that he wouldn't be able to just say, well, it's the Republicans. Homelessness. But he's able to, like a duck with water thrown on a duck, he sheds it off. He's pointed to local officials to blame for the $24 billion loss with no results. The budget deficits, he links that to external factors. So he may be insulated here in California because the mainstream media will protect him. But it also creates an overconfidence because national voters demand accountability. They demand that accountability for outcomes. And that's going to expose a lot of gaps in a primary where multiple candidates will employ the anti-Trump rhetoric. My point in saying that is he got a little bump because he's anti-Trump. Every candidate is going to be doing that in the primary. So it's going to negate each other. So again, dead man walking. The polling alone shows that the state where it's at will bear that out too. Economic pressures. His governorship has coincided with significant economic headwinds. In other words, economic troubles. You know, we are the nation's largest economy, fourth in the world. And that sounds nice until you look at our numbers. Budget deficit, the homeless issue, a grid that is unstable electricity-wise. So all that's going to be a liability in a national campaign that will be focused on affordability and growth. And with businesses and constituents fleeing in record numbers, big liability. So as of mid-2025, we faced a $12 billion budget deficit. And I think even that was low. I think it's bigger than that in terms of how they played with the numbers to get to just 12 billion. It's higher, I believe. But our budgets for the 2025-26 fiscal year. It was revised upward from earlier estimates due to the social service costs are soaring. Illegals cost a lot of money, and we're getting more, not less. Well, since Trump took over, probably less now. That has nothing to do with Newsom. Job growth is sluggish. We're at 0.8% in the first quarter of 2025. Unemployment is at 5.3%. And that's using the good formula to up the unemployment numbers. Our unemployment is above the national average. I mean, it's tougher here to get a job than anywhere else. Tech and professional services, persistent job losses, and we're in a slowdown. This is California, not necessarily the rest of the nation. So while this is often sidestepped in Democrat circles, the state's unfunded pension liabilities. So what I mean by sidestep, meaning they don't talk about it, it's not in the budget. It's money owed to people for retirement and healthcare services and other services and things like that. But that's estimated anywhere from around 250 to 300 billion officially, but it could be up to 1 trillion on a market basis. That's the current market valuation of that debt, and including OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. That's where I said the healthcare and that type of stuff. And then bonded debt, it could be anywhere as high, or rather as high as 1.6 to 1.9 trillion. Now, that's not really going to affect Newsom, but the savvy marketer for an opponent is going to figure out how to make that an issue. Because we have $37 trillion debt. When you bring that up, the people are like, wow, that's high. You know, well, he's going to make it worse. 1.6, $1.9 trillion debt in his own state. I was known in marketing in my industry as I could make a mountain out of a molehill. And that's what I would do as, what do they call it? Opponent research. There's a term. But anyway, then there's the exodus. California is so bad. Companies such as Chevron, they've relocated their headquarters to Texas. I think last count I saw was like over 800 businesses have left California during Newsom's reign. High taxes and regulations are the key reason. And we grew modestly by about 108,000. A lot of those were illegals. But we are still in a negative with net domestic migration. Over 700,000 middle-class tax-paying residents left since 2019. The ones that have come to replace them, illegals or lower income. You see, so it doesn't add up. Our tax base is leaving, which is why they want to keep raising taxes, which is why I was against the SALT cap in the big, beautiful bill, which meant our federal write-off went from 10,000 to 40,000. That means Democrats don't have to answer for their high costs or their high taxes. But other reasons that people are leaving: the high cost of living, housing shortage, crime, higher taxes. And what's worse is it's really the stringent environmental mandate that makes everything expensive, from the way our food, our gas, our housing, all that. It's all tied into it. So this out-migration, if Trump gets all these illegals out, it focuses on California, we're going to lose. We will lose congressional seats. That's why it's so important for Democrats to have illegals counted as part of the census. They should not be counted as part of the census, period. Damn courts. I think they need to figure out a way to get that back in front of the Supreme Court now and get that overturned. Now, obviously, this out-migration will affect us economically. Again, as I just stated, reduced tax revenue. They call it tax revenue, reduced taxes, and a loss of congressional seats. Then there's the energy costs and wildfire management. All this is falling under Newsom. This is how they will exploit him. This is what will come up. This is what his opponents will, in the primary, will bring up against him. That, and he's a big old white dude, good-looking guy, but he's so arrogant. He doesn't see that he comes off as a terrible frat guy. High energy prices. Gasoline's averaging about $4.62 per gallon last month. The national average is $3.20. In some states, it's closer to $2.20. And that's because we have these ridiculous clean fuel standards and taxes. In 2017, the legislature created a law. He signed it into law where I want to say August or it goes up, the gas tax. Think about that. He was responsible for that. Electricity rates have gone up nearly 50% since 2021. That's because the utility companies are in bed with the Democrats, and the Democrats won't hold them accountable as they make billions in profit. There was a 2024 executive order he did for relief. We're going to have blackouts now. The fires, we're in the fire season. We already have a couple of big ones. One that's bigger than LA, but it's more out in the wilderness, so you're not seeing it make the news. Then you got a 2035 electric vehicle mandate, which is an executive order. There's no law that was passed, so that will go away. But the grid is being strained. Tesla's not doing anything to help it. Elon's all pissed off. But Tesla's setting up all these charging stations, but they're not contributing to helping improve and build out the grid. And in a way they shouldn't. Our tax dollars should. But when you use tax dollars for illegals, everything from free education to free Medi-Cal, they're not going to take care of what the constituents need taken care of, electricity. Wildfires, I just mentioned those. They exacerbate all this. 2025 premium surge to $20 billion in potential losses from recent fires. Coverage denials. Newsom's policies, including a 2025 rule that allowed insurers to pass costs to consumers. It's resulted in hikes in a $1 billion surcharge via the FAIR Plan for Los Angeles fire recovery. The FAIR Plan is the government-funded life or fire insurance. And that was bankrupted within the first hour of the fire. Man, I'm being sarcastic, but you know what I mean. Our insurance increased by about $1,400. We got that a few months ago when they sat there and said that, hey, we are going to allow the insurance companies to raise their prices. So in essence, what's happening is us taxpaying fire insurance, our fire insurance, or ours is combined, our personal one here. But it's going up so we can bail everybody out who can't afford it. That's what it boils down to. So the moratoriums on non-renewals provide temporary relief. That's temporary. Push comes to shove. These companies are going to go to court. You can't tell us that we can't not take people off if we see a loss coming, if we can't afford to sit there and take care of it, a massive fire, because you're not doing your job. So this is all temporary. And nothing's been solved. And that's on Newsom. That will come out too. Obviously, the illegal aliens, his expansion of benefits for illegals through Medi-Cal, that's drawn attention. I was trying to cut that back, but billions and billions. I want to say 8 to 9 billion for the general fund. And then they cut other programs for our young, programs for brown and black Californian kids who could get better education. They care more about the illegals than they do the constituents, because We're there. We're a deep blue state where we can vote. They're trying to use voter fraud. Before y'all said, what are you talking about, William? When you sit there and allow illegals to get driver's license and you automate the California DMV to register, and even though technically they're supposed to look at it illegal or legal, they don't. And they've been busted. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. But 23 million spent on illegal alien services in 2022 alone under Newsom. All this will be brought up. Right now, the Democrats are on the 80-20. If this economy begins to improve as we think it will, it could be another blood bath in the midterms. That's why they were trying to use the LA riots to create George Floyd 2.0 and have BLM 2.0 this summer, and it failed. Homelessness, persistent issue. It rose 3% in California in 2024, about 190,000 people, despite $24 billion invested. And that money, there's a federal investigation, and that's going to fall on Newsom. It's money that goes to nonprofits. You get these nonprofits, or their executive directors getting paid $200,000 to $700,000 a year out of that $24 billion. They give these cushy contracts to friends and family. All this is documented. You can go check it out. And the feds are investigating. So then Newsom's trying to turn things around. So he can say, hey, I'm doing this. One of those things is the 2025 3-year action plan for encampment clearance ordinances. And he's saying that's going to address it. In essence, all they're going to do is move the homeless from one spot to another spot, from the city limits outside the city limits. Results are beyond mixed. 70% of emergency relief funds are unspent, and they don't know where a lot of it's at. And he blames locals, saying it's your fault, cities, not my fault. Then there's a scandal. Don't forget 2020, dined at the French Laundry restaurant without a mask, laughing. What's that? Oh, you can't take a picture. Where's my mask? Then let's not forget he shut down the schools, prolonged school closures, and the study shows that has detrimentally affected our kids, while his kids kept going to school every day, private school. Don't think that's not going to come back up. It will. Then the strict lockdown resulted in arrests. Turns out, hey, those of us who didn't take the jab are much safer today than those who took the jab. But they were trying to force the jab, and if you left the house, jabbed or not, you would get arrested, including we all remember the paddleboarder in Malibu. He's out in the ocean all by himself, and there's a police boat. Return to the beach. Return to the beach. And then they arrest him right there and there. 32 were detained in one incident. And he's talking about, you can't be arresting these illegals. No, you can't arrest an illegal per Newsom, but you can only arrest the ones who wanted a bit of freedom during COVID. The only ones who could have freedom were the Democrats. Newsom with the French Laundry restaurant. Remember that big party here in California? I can't remember where, with Nancy Pelosi and others are all unmasked. The servants, all brown, wearing masks. Newsom activated the National Guard during COVID. Overreach. Disparate treatment. Churches face severe restrictions. They couldn't even have indoor, there are bans on indoor services. Obviously, lawsuits happened. And on the flip side, you want to smoke a little weed, you want to get a little drunk. That's essential. And the point being, this is what government does. They want to keep us drugged out, drunked out. And that's one way to maintain control over us. I BS you not. Studies have been done. Cases are out there. How the government plans and implements some of this stuff. So churches, no. Why? Because you don't have faith in government. You have faith in God. Cannabis and booze, you're messed up. And you can be controlled easier. So they had no priorities to actually help the people. They had the priorities, how do we control the people? Then there was EDD fraud scandal. Anywhere from 20 to 32 billion in improper unemployment payouts, including the prisoners. So all this is going to come up. Then he's not the best debater. Maybe a good masturbator, but not a debater. His defense, good-looking guy. He just goes to his best friend's a wife, and she'll take care of him. Why do I bring up debates? Because I don't think he has a leg to stand on, and Ron DeSantis exposed his vulnerabilities on issues like crime and homelessness. I mean, he relies on broad assertions instead of detailed rebuttals, because he has no detailed rebuttals. I mean, hell, even Steve Bannon took him to the woodshed. His tactic in debates is to blame the GOP, and that'll work in California, but not on a national scale, national debate stage. You know, they had, again, in this deep blue state, they still have the power to shift blame to other groups, other municipalities, to everyone but themselves. The legislature does it, and Newsom does it. But let's get back to the debate real quick. So Newsom struggles with debates on a national scale, and he has always avoided debates or minimized them. In California, DeSantis in 2023, he embarrassed him, grossly embarrassed him by showing the poop map, talking how bad the homelessness crisis is. And Newsom called it absurd, but everybody laughed because we've all I haven't, but I have in San Francisco. It was a lie. He called it absurd. Nobody believed him. I wouldn't be surprised if even the host or the moderator like, oh damn, got absurd and juvenile, but it's so true. And what made it worse is it was a type of point that lingered for days. That's the worst type of debate point to lose, is one that transcends the debate and becomes part of the campaign. And then even then, after the debate, he struggled when confronted about the homelessness statistics. You know, Governor Newsom, you from the ideology of the Deep South, Governor Newsom, your homelessness statistics said you said this, and this is what they really are. So he's really gonna have to clean up his debate ability. He claimed that that California had reduced unsheltered homelessness by 30%. Oh man! In fact, checks reveal California's overall homelessness rose under the watch of Governor Newsom. These lack of accomplishments will hurt him. Now he can sit there and ride the primary on the gun safety laws, climate leadership. But even then, progressives are getting tired of it, meaning the middle of the road, the blue collar ones. They're not part of the socialist crap. So that's not the win it used to be. Plus, they're all going to be saying that. He's going to run a campaign, and his opponents are going to run a campaign on a referendum on California to get him out. And there, you know, there's so much to talk about that will doom Newsom, and I left so much out. But that was a lot of the gist of some of the heavy hitting issues he'll have, but there's tons more, and I'll get to it. Newsom's going to be a fun topic to talk about because I believe he's a dead man walking. All right, so let us move on. Judicial activism alert. Biden's bench buddy tries to build a sanctuary wall in SoCal. So what am I referring to here? Whoa, hold on one second. Where'd my notes go? Here we go. I'm like, where'd my notes go? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do a final with my notes. Here's why it will be pretty easy to defeat Newsom before we get to the next topic. The budget deficit alone. He has no fiscal plan. He mismanages fiscally. 12 billion, 2025, 2026. It signals fiscal mismanagement. And with the national debt debate, that's not going to play well at all. Then there's the population exodus. 700,000 have left taxpayers. That raises questions on the livability and policy effectiveness he brings to the table. Homelessness. 190,000 recently, up 3% in 2024. Highlights gaps in his social spending despite billions invested. Immigration costs, illegal alien costs, 8 to 9 billion annually. And yet we can't get our state in order on constituent objectives. And that's going to hurt because he needs those constituent votes across the nation if he's going to run. And they're going to say, well, you want to take care of illegals before us. COVID fraud. He has no oversight ability. These are issues that you can frame to truly destroy him. Crime rates. He's going to claim violent crime is down and homicide is down. But even though they're down, they're still above national levels. And even worse, a good campaign is going to be able to attack him that you're not reporting and you're not prosecuting. So you're lying. And they're going to be able to paint him as a lawyer, especially when you start bringing out people and families. Housing affordability. You know, the average home here in California is now $900,000. And only 17% of households can afford a house. That really hits him hard with the cost of living. That's the economic part. That's going to kill him. And then the unfunded pensions. That can be aligned with the debt. So, you know, he's toast. Toast. All right, let us move on. So let us talk about Pedro Vasquez Perdomo versus Kristi Noem. So this is the case that was filed just this past Friday, June 11th, maybe June 11th. Anyway, it was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. Oh, I believe this is it. Maybe I have the wrong one. May have the wrong date. Okay, here we go. Yeah. No, it's the right one. It's the right one. So in essence, this was filed way on back. It finally got heard. But in essence, you're talking groups like the ACLU, the Let's Protect Illegals and Kill Californian nonprofits. That's how I look at it. You know, I really do. You know, One Lake and Riley's bad enough. You know, we allowed in California. I can't remember the girl in San Francisco. The guy killed her in the park and he got off. Anyway, so what they're saying is that ICE's CBP raids in Los Angeles, Southern California, that started in June, involved suspicious less stopped based on race, language, or work location. Well, I got news for you. Where did the homeless hang around looking for it? It is Home Depot. That has nothing to do with it. What they're saying is, well, you can't go there. Okay, well, you got to go to the church, or you got to go to 7-Eleven. You got to go there. You got to make it equal, the places you go to. No, you go where they're at. Home Depot. Why? Construction. But they're saying this violates the Fourth Amendment and denies access to counsel. These are real overreaches. They're denying access to counsel. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into details. I did speak to a lawyer, and he explained it. I started writing down. It's like, I'm not lost, but this is going to be too deep. But he says, yes, it's the denying access to counsel is not what they're saying. So Judge Mami Iwusi Mensah Frimpong. I like that. Frimpong. Yes, she's an American citizen. I think her parents are from Ghana. She was born here. So, you know, we can't sit here and say, oh, look at that foreign. No, she's American. I mean, just because her name is Frimpong doesn't mean we need to sit there and go down that road. I, as a Latino with relatives all over the place, I'm not going to go down that road. Anyway, she granted 2 temporary restraining orders. In essence, this started in June. Friday, July 11th, she came about, says, I need to make myself famous. The name Frimpong needs to be famous. That's pretty much. So she gave 2 temporary restraining orders and 1 barring stops without reasonable suspicion and arrest based solely on appearance, and another ensuring detainees access to attorneys. That no longer is going to fly. There was a time it could have, but they have the thing about Trump, they have all their paperwork in order. Yeah. So right now the left thinks, they got to stop. They got to stop. But they don't have to stop. The order doesn't say they have to stop. They just have to follow this criteria, which they're already following. But the TROs are in effect, and theoretically, it could halt the raid's tactics until further hearings. And the Trump DOJ filed an appeal the very next day to the Ninth Circuit, and they argue the ruling impedes federal immigrant enforcement. There's no hearing date that's been set to my knowledge, but the appeal waives fees as a government action. But that's not important. But why is this judicial overreach? Well, the ruling exemplifies judicial overreach by a Biden-appointed judge. And it intrudes into executive immigration policy. And that's a core federal prerogative under statutes like 8 U.S.C. 1357. And that authorizes warrantless arrest for violations. This on its face will get smacked down. Again, I did speak to a lawyer, former federal prosecutor, to be quite frank. And they're arguing that this is being purposely done to tie up ICE from doing their job. And it ignores operational necessities that are allowed by the executive branch. Now, here's a little bit about Frimpong. Under Obama's DOJ tenure under Eric Holder and Tony West, she held senior roles during the controversial slush funds. So what that app did is that diverted corporate settlements to liberal activist groups. I remember when this was happening. It drove me nuts because Republicans did nothing about it. They should go back now and prosecute some of these people for whatever law they can for doing this slush fund. So she's not a good human being. She's a vile, evil human being. And I'm sorry. These are the type of people who the day they leave this earth to go on their next journey, the earth, Mother Earth, will be a better place because they completely abuse their power and it affects hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions. So she's very biased. She's an activist judge from a DEI prioritized appointment. She was picked because she's a woman and Black. She's in essence tried to create a de facto sanctuary zone in SoCal. And this overrides congressional intent, again, an overreach, and executive discretion. And why do I say that? Well, Trump versus Hawaii in 2018. SCOTUS upheld Trump's travel restrictions on certain countries. This is similar. Not to mention, she completely misconstrued Justice Alito's, one of his opinions. She completely misconstrued it to fit the debacle she's trying to push. That's going to get slapped down too. It's what you call insane activism. Purposely handcuffing enforcement and prioritizing identity politics over impartial justice. In other words, she's saying you can't touch brown people because they brown and I don't like you, whitey. Law enforcement, whitey. That's what she's doing in my eyes. And I, as a Latino, have no qualms in calling out racial hate like that. So what is likely to happen? Well, the Ninth Circuit, known for its liberal leanings, I think there's like 19 judges, I think, that are still liberal, and there's 13 that are conservative. A far cry from the old days when it was literally 100% leftist. But it has liberal leanings, and they may uphold the TRO in a preliminary ruling. But then the DOJ will likely seek an emergency stay or expedited appeal, which is what has happened. Expect this to escalate to the Supreme Court, where the conservative majority will slap it down again, citing deference to executive informant. INS versus Aguirre, 1999. That's right, people. I do my research and I bring the receipts. Now, TRO, all these TROs expire in 14 days unless extended, and the raids may resume elsewhere or adapt tactics pending resolution. They're not going to adapt tactics. They're going to keep doing what they're doing because they're following the law. See, that's what makes no sense out of this. She's made a lot of 52-page nonsensical opinion. They can keep doing what they're doing. All they have to do is say, yeah, this is what we follow right here, Constitution. So, based on SCOTUS trends, since Trump's influence solidified a 63 conservative majority, most expect the court to rule in favor of the Trump admin. They're going to emphasize the broad executive authority within the immigration framework And that's seen again in the Trump versus Hawaii, upholding travel restrictions, and more recent decisions that are limiting lower courts' interference in enforcement priorities, such as United States versus Texas 2023. Look that up. And this will likely mean the striking down of the TRO as unconstitutional, as it's a barrier to federal law enforcement that they have every legal right to pursue. It's going to reinforce that judges aren't border policy czars. And there will be one dissent at least, and that dissent will be, I don't know what a woman is. Aren't you a woman? Yes, but I don't know what the woman is. Ketanya Brown Jackson. What a moron. There's another DEI hire. And that's not me saying that. That's President Biden. I got some DEI hire, people. She got to be a woman in black. That's all I care about. And he got her. He got her. And she's proving to have alienated herself, even from the conservatives. I think deep down she's a racist bigot. And she does as she's told, which makes it worse. If you're black, that's the worst example you want. A Clarence Thomas is what you want. For me as a Latino, Sotomayor, beta carajo. She's a loser too. So expect that to be struck down. It hasn't made a lot of news. It's hoopla Friday and Saturday. It's kind of gone away because it's not going to make the impact leftists believe it should or want it to. So let's talk about another big story. Newsom's donor disaster, the illegal cannabis farm raid that uncovered child exploitation and trafficking in the deep blue state of California that wanted it to continue. I'm not lying. So July 10th, federal agents from ICBP and the National Guard executed immigration raids at 2 licensed cannabis facilities. And they were owned by a Newsom donor, Glass House Brands, in Camarillo, that's Ventura County, and Carpinteria, California. So the raids targeted illegals. 361 arrests of illegals. 300,000 children have been lost because of Biden. 14 of them were found. Underage migrant juveniles, including 9 unaccompanied minors as young as 14, meaning they weren't with family. And these conditions were suggestive of forced labor and human trafficking. One U.S. citizen, a farm worker, Jaime Alanes Garcia, he died after falling from a greenhouse roof during an escape attempt. So he caused it himself. Well, what would have happened if they hadn't raided? Well, he shouldn't have run. And y'all want me to feel pity, and I feel for him and his family. Why'd you run? Why'd you hide? In such a way that caused your own death. Protests outside turned violent. 500 demonstrators clashing with authorities. See, they want these people to shoot on them. That's what the Democrats want. So then they have their video right there. And they can sit there and have their George Floyd moment. But they blocked roads, hurled rocks and bricks. And one of them fired a gun. What's going to happen is you're going to see agents undercover. And as soon as somebody starts throwing rocks, boom, we're going to tackle them. We're going to start throwing them into the jail. That's what's going to start happening. They used tear gas and smoke devices. 4 U.S. citizens were arrested. I hope they get the book thrown at them for assaulting and resisting federal agents. Again, the farms are Newsom farms. Why? They donated to his campaign and to the California Democrats. And they're bad farms, and they're facing ongoing federal probes for child labor violations. The Democrat Party, the party of sexual trafficking, the party of abusing child for labor purposes. So Glass House Brands is a major licensed cannabis producer. Here's the other thing. You know, even some people, there's one cool cat. He's a black guy, really good stuff he puts out, but he's gotten off this stupid, ignorant takes like, well, we shouldn't be raiding a lettuce farm. No, you moron. It was a cannabis farm. Oh, it's a strawberry farm, man. See, they don't want to do cannabis. First of all, cannabis is still illegal federally, so they can go raid any farm they want. There's just that unwritten rule, and they're letting it go. But technically, they can raid any farm they want. That's cannabis. Now, this farm, Glasshouse Brands, has a history of labor complaints, including a 2024 class action lawsuit that accuses the company of failing to pay wages, denying breaks, and imposing unrealistic quotas. And they get away with this because they have illegals working it. Illegals working it. Who's illegal going to complain to? No, that farm itself will call INS on them. That's how they get away with it. Democrats, the party of exploitation in California's cannabis and agriculture sectors, always involving illegals, and a lot of it's tied to trafficking networks. And they know this. Now, Graham Farrar has contributed thousands to Newsom and the California Democratic Party. He's like, God, just to keep the grip going, baby. Here you go, Newsom. Here you go, Democrat leader. And they look the other way and they defend him. Agents found the 14 minors amid locked trailers. Now you see Trump in cages. No, here's some cages right here, locked trailers. Forced labor setups with some children as young as 14 working alongside the adults in 100-degree temperatures at times. Now, there was a previously deported Mexican national who was convicted of kidnapping, attempted rape, and prior convictions for attempted child molestation. 14 minors, he's living there. He'd already been sentenced to 7 years. There was another one, he was Mexican, convicted of rape and DUI in El Salvador, convicted of DUI and hit and run with property damage. Another Mexican with 3 burglary convictions and a DUI. These predators were working at the same sites as the rescued minors. Think about that. Democrat violence. Again, those are the protesters. Newsom posted a video of the protesters fleeing tear gas and labeled Trump the real scum. See, that's what they want. They want that video. And he accused the administration of chaos. At the same time, claiming California prosecutes child exploiters, despite the rate exposing what he was trying to protect: sexual trafficking, human trafficking, child abuse. Talk about not getting the win you think you're going to get. Then there's Representative Jimmy Gomez. This is insensitive. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Here's my favorite imitation. We'll never forget her leaving the airport from coming back from Ghana. Miss Bass, do you have any comments? She reminded me of Ralph Furley, Don Knotts' character on Three's Company. She called it violent and cruel. Really? Don't you think anally raping a minor is more violent and cruel than a raid to protect them and save them? Then there's Representative Salud Carvajal. He doxed a federal agent allegedly. They need to bring charges up on him. Enough with this nonsense. You dox my family, and we're going to have a few words. And there ain't going to be no cameras around. Where's my husband? Oh, no. So conservatives, hey, we hail this for the raids for rescuing children that Biden let loose. Now, I want to take a quick moment here to talk about the Epstein hoopla and why I get angry at that. So the Epstein case continues to fuel endless conspiracy theories. I talked about this just last night in the Red, White, and Rude podcast. Check it out. You can find that at grumblingsmedia.com or where you're watching now, YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify. And it's Red, White, and Rude. I want to say episode 56 maybe. But I talk about this. It's not nonsense, it's serious business. But I get angry because some MAGA influencers are more fixated on rehashing those narratives than celebrating victories like this and freeing actual children from a life of being sexually trafficked, anally raped, sexually abused, worked to the bone. by a Gavin Newsom donor. So instead of grifting off unproven Epstein lore, maybe you MAGA influencers should be looking at tangible actions like saving the kids right now, exposing the failures of lax border policies that allow this exploitation to thrive in a Democrat-run state. But instead, where's the Epstein list, man? Hit click. Buy my t-shirt. That's all I care about. Tucker's the worst. Man, boy, talk about Tucker and Candace Owens. And I got a great picture with me alongside Candace Owens. We're tight. No, we're not tight. Just one of those op pictures. But man, they've gone on the deep end, boy. They made, whether they're anti-Semitic Semites or not, they come across as anti-Semites. Anyway, so the raids concluded. 361 arrests and deportations are underway, including identified criminals. The 14 juveniles are in protective custody. The investigations into trafficking and child labor violations are ongoing by DHS and Department of Labor. Glass House Brands faces potential fines and shutdowns. I hope they can bring legal charges up on the owners. No charges on them have been filed yet. Those protesting and assaulting the agents are awaiting federal prosecution. Now there is a wrinkle here. Disabled U.S. veteran George Retes was reportedly wrongfully detained for 3 days before being released. Now, he is innocent, but he was unharmed. He worked at the farm, and I want you to think about this. He worked at a farm knowing there was exploitation, knowing there was child labor abuse, didn't report it. Didn't report it. So when you come to me and say, William, look what they did, I'm saying, well, look what he didn't do. Look what he didn't do. And shut the bleep up with your sob story. Because he likely knew of the exploit. How can you not know? It was out in the open there. It's what you call an open secret. He likely knew those kids were being abused. Worked to the bone in the fields and probably knew they were anally raped. Who knows? Maybe he was like, where's my number? Of course, I'm being sarcastic, but he likely knew. So he actually exemplifies the ugly human truth of complacency in the face of wrongdoing for his own personal stability. I got a job. I don't want to risk that. Yeah, you go get anally raped, little guy. I got my job to protect. No further violence has been reported. The federal oversight of California's cannabis industry has intensified. This is the largest worksite enforcement action of the year. And it's going to continue. Thank God. See, you know, Trump was talking about having some kind of amnesty for this. This is going to change everything. Because he's going to see firsthand, wow, we got to take out all these farms. How many more kids we're going to find on them? I'd say probably hundreds more. This is a clear win for the conservative value system, validates our Trump-era immigration enforcement, and exposes the human cost of open border policies. Look, this is a revelation of child predators that exploited minors working at a Newsom donor's farm. And what to do? It's showing Democrats are the enablers of trafficking and labor abuse. They talk about compassion. Where's the compassion of a child being anally raped, being worked to the bone alongside adults, and he's only 14? There's just another black eye. And it's on Newsom. Damn right I'm bringing this up in the primary run. His defensive post backfired. This highlights the state failures. And it makes even this far-reaching effects, even all the way to Chicago with Tammy Baldwin facing backlash. She voted against Lake and Riley Act. Now, sadly, the story has faded quickly for the mainstream. They don't want to cover it, but it does linger online. The internet's permanent. So are primaries. All this does is reinforce the perceptions of Democrat hypocrisy and boost my call, conservative cause, for more nationwide raids. Gavin Newsom's political fallout, the tying into his eventual run here. President Graham Farrar's donation just creates more jabs towards Newsom and the Democrats that they prioritize donor interest over children's safety. Newsom prosecutes child exploiters? Not. Or maybe he does, unless they're funding his campaign and exploiting kids on donor farms. This just shows how political contributions shield these type of operations. And that happened in the Epstein. The problem with the Epstein that's so different is that came out in 2008. How much of that has been buried, evidence destroyed? This is stuff that's happening now that we can act on. Blue California's fourth rated economy in the world, built on illegal labor, child slaves, and predator hires, all courtesy of Gavin Newsom's buddies. So in the end, Glasshouse Farms raids, they exemplify exactly what conservatives voted for. Robust enforcement that rescues vulnerable children from the exploitation of Democrat-driven policies. We want to uphold the rule of law that protects even the children who were brought here illegally. We are the compassionate ones that champion legal immigration, pathways that protect everyone. Unchecked illegal entries breed horrors like unpaid labor, slavery-like conditions, criminal infiltration in workforce, and sex trafficking. These issues have been laid bare and exposed in Democrat-run California, my state, I'm ashamed to say. This is a win for American values, safeguarding innocent lives, and reaffirming that secure borders are the true path to justice and humanity. There you have it, my friends. That's all for episode 19 of Fired Up California. Thank you for tuning in. We dissected Newsom's 2028 ambitions, plagued with economic woes, homelessness failures, and COVID missteps. That's just a handful of what you could talk about. Talked about the activist judge blocking the border enforcement in SoCal, and obviously the explosive cannabis farm, or rather the farm raid, revealing exploited kids, criminal illegals, and ties to Newsom donors. Remember, these stories highlight the high cost of progressive policies and the rare wins we get in destroying it and saving lives. So before I go, don't forget to bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. grumblingsmedia.com. And follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify under the handle Grumblings Media. So stay fired up, my friends. Subscribe and follow. And join us next time for more truth on California chaos.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.